What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Mindful Moneymakers podcast, where we host different conversations with thought leaders, creatives, and entrepreneurs all about the different mindset shifts you need to make if you want to live a life by design instead of by default. Today, we have a powerhouse, a entrepreneur of all sorts, a creative of all sorts, a recording artist. He's a podcast host. He's an actor. He's somebody that you want to know. Today, I'm excited to be having a conversation with Mr. Jonni Vegaz. Sleep is for billionaires. What's up, brother?
See it, man. Oh man, life is good. Can't complain, my brother. Just counting the blessings and sending the prayers back up, man. How you doing?
Oh man, it's heaven all around me, bro. You know the vibes.
Hey, I love it. I love it, man. We allowed to talk about it. That's the biggest blessing. You know what I'm saying? Especially with everything going on. You know what I mean?
Yep. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, man. I'm glad we got the opportunity to connect, and I appreciate you for jumping on the podcast today and chopping it up and
Thank you for
dropping
having
some
me. I
gems.
appreciate it.
For sure. So you got a very extensive resume, and anybody that follows you on Instagram or knows you in real life knows that you're pretty much a 24/7 hustler. Uh,
Can't
could you?
stop, man. Sleep is for billionaires. You already know.
I feel it. I feel it. So could you give us a little bit of insight of what it's like to be Johnny Vegas? Where did you get started? Where are you now, and where are we headed?
Whoo, man. How much time you got? Man, well, just to sum it all up, not to make a long story less long. I mean, I grew up in the Bronx, New York City. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to New York. Lived in Patterson, New Jersey. Lived in Tampa, Florida, and now I'm out here in LA doing my thing. I grew a passion for music first, more than before anything, and came up like everybody else, doing local rap battles and talent shows and stuff like that. But until people started telling me I was really good at it, that's when I decided to take it serious. And this is like more so at the age of 15, where I actually was inquiring about putting out music and getting some graphic works done, and really taking carrying myself like an artist. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I was still a young boy. I was still living in my mom's house. I was still going to school. You know what I'm saying? So it was still a dream. You know what I'm saying, at that time. And then when I moved to Patterson, New Jersey, that's when I started really getting some local fame out there. I started jumping on local DJs mixtapes. DJing was a big thing over there. So, getting cool with the GJs kind of gave me some local notoriety. And then it wasn't until I moved to Tampa, Florida, where I continued to pursue a music career. But at the same time, it was still more so of a hobby because it wasn't really paying no bills. So I jumped into the sales game. I left school early. I got my GED. Because that was the minimum requirement you needed to get a job. So I got that, and in Florida, telemarketing was the thing. It was a nice, easy way to get money. You know what I'm saying? Good money at that because it was salary plus commission. So I was doing that for like 10 years. You know what I'm saying? At the same time, I was doing my dreams part time as well. So I would self fund my projects. Pay to open up for artists and stuff like that with the money I was making from my sales jobs. You know what I'm saying? So I in Tampa, Florida, also I jumped into there was this acting role available. My boy put me on to, and then I did the role. The role was to be some drug dealer gangster, the typical entry level role. Everyone gets this shit, But it was right up my alley. Not to say I was a drug dealer or anything, but that's just the type of movies I was watching. People I identify with coming from where I came from. So I just kind of tapped into that role, that mindset. And when I did it, everybody was like, "Yo, you killed it. You had the best part." And I'm like, "Yo, I never took an acting class in my life. I just dead ass sit in front of the TV and watch Denzel all day." So that was enough motivation for me to say, "Oh yeah, you like that? Fuck it. Let's see if Hollywood likes it." So then, luckily, thank God, my job fired me. You know what I'm saying? So the last job I had fired me, and 6 months prior to me being fired, I had met my girl. And she was looking for a different atmosphere, different environment. So I proposed the opportunity to move to Cali. And the plan was to save up some money and then go. But once I got word that the firing was coming, you know what I'm saying, I saved up some money. And then when that happened, I want to say about a month or a month and a half, we took that road trip to Cali and never looked back. And ever since I've been in Cali, things have been doing well. Like the first year, I mean, I got into almost 100 roles, acting. Granted, a lot of them was background, but they were all paid roles. I got into the Screen Actors Guild. You know what I'm saying? And then I wanted to create some type of networking pool that would allow people to come to me versus me going to reach out. So, well, prior, that's how Sleep is for Billionaires was formed as far as the podcast. But prior to that, that was the title of my latest album, Sleep is for Billionaires. So I just, I love the name so much. I decided to just roll it over to the podcast because it had a strong message behind it. So once I created the podcast, I would just reach out to different celebrities and entrepreneurs and public figures and say, hey, let me interview you. This is the podcast. It's about this, that, and the third. And it's a numbers game. I hit up, maybe like 1,000 people, and out of those thousands, I maybe got close to 100 interviews. You know what I'm saying? So, and I learned all that from sales. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the grind. And take the 1,000 no's to get to one yes. You know what I'm saying? So I just applied that grind method to my podcast, and it's doing pretty well. You know what I'm saying? I just decided to expand by putting the merchandise behind it and coming out with the ebook, dropping Sleepers for Billionaires Part 2, the album, and just finding different ways to monetize that brand.
That's dope, bro. It sounds like you got the entrepreneurial mindset on steroids. So I feel like this
Right, man.
conversation is going to be ridiculously valuable for anybody tuning in, anybody tapping in, especially the creatives, the artists, and the people that make music.
Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest difference between a higher achiever in your field versus somebody that kind of they interested, they get started, maybe they try, but they ended up draining themselves out and turning back. What do you think is the major difference between the successful and the unsuccessful people in your field?
I say, if you do what you love, it never feels like work. And I'm sure you heard that before as well. You know what I'm saying? Because when it gets to a point where things, well, whatever it is that you're doing starts feeling like work, then it becomes tedious. It's like, oh, I got to do this again. Oh my God, how much time is this going to take? You know what I'm saying? You genuinely have to do what you love and love what you do. You know what I'm saying? I love what I do. You know what I'm saying? Especially being a creative allows me to create more things within what I'm already doing. By that I mean, with Sleepers for Billionaires, doing the album, doing the podcast, doing the ebook, you know what I'm saying, doing the clothing, you know what I'm saying. I'm building that, I'm watering that seed and watching it grow. So, to answer your question, I think you definitely have to do what you love, and also you gotta have some goals for it. You know what I'm saying? If your goal is just to kind of build content, get it out there, then you're probably going to be limited in your happiness, because once you produce the content, put it out there, that's it. But if you're looking to really monetize and grow it as a business, then you can find out different ways to structure your business model and have products, and just different ways to monetize your brand, and actually consider it as a brand and as a business. You know what I'm saying? And then monetize it, and that is more of a long-term play. So now you're kind of putting yourself in a mind frame that, okay, I have to see this project through because it's going to take time. So you're already going in with the mindset that, okay, this is good, I have to, this is for the long term.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Versus something short where it's like we create content, put it out, and then that's it. That was the goal. You know what I'm saying? So you just basically got to have those long term goals versus the short term goals. What you want to do, at least in this space.
Hmm. Right, right. Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. I know that's valuable. You seem like somebody. Well, I know because I seen you up close. You're somebody that's wearing multiple hats and juggling multiple projects at once. Now, for the person that is just getting started, they have an idea that, and they haven't put rubber to pavement yet. Is that something that you recommend to just create a podcast and a clothing brand and put out an album and do all that stuff, or would you rather? Or would you recommend that they focus on one thing at a time, or like what's the insight?
I mean, honestly, I think it's a case by case kind of thing, because it just depends on what type of person you are, and how much you can handle. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I have a lot of difficulty, not spreading myself so thin. I'm kind of just learning that as I grew up, because it's like, the sales, being in sales is like my bread and butter. So that's not going anywhere. The podcast is on the side, but at the same time, I'm trying to go grow it so it becomes a full time. You know what I'm saying? But then it's like, my mind was always like a pie graph. You know what I'm saying? I dump a little bit of time into each little individual project, but at the same time, you really got to assess what you're doing and realize, and really ask yourself, is that the best use of your time? And what's the ultimate goal for what it is you're trying to do? So as I look at my life personally, one, like I told you, the sales is not going anywhere because it's the bread and butter that's funding everything I'm doing. So as far as the dream, what is more valuable to me? What's more important to me? You know what I'm saying? Like, I've been rapping for a long time, but at the same time, what's moving the quickest, what's moving the fastest. So I had to make a pivot into the podcast was, since I saw that was booming. And I know a lot of people, and I know a little bit about a lot. So I feel I could have good conversations with people. So why not put it on tape and call it a podcast, right? And keep that name Sleepers for Billionaires going to build a brand now, and use different branches off that tree to monetize that one tree. But at the same time, as you can see, for a long time, my mindset has been like that, kind of juggling opportunities, no stranger to hard work and just going that way. For someone who's not designed to operate that way, that may be a little tedious for them and might discourage them from proceeding that way. But so again, it's a case by case basis depending on the type of person that you're dealing with. But I say, start with one thing, and really nurture it. Just don't try it for like a week, and if it doesn't work, you say, "I forget it." Really put some time, some effort into it, and really, make it look as professional as possible. One thing about me, even as a local artist, I never really looked at other local artists as my competition. I always looked at the major artists as my competition, because that's what I was looking to become, and that's how I wanted to carry myself, and that's how I wanted to be perceived. So, I would have to act as if, you know what I'm saying? So, I think people should set those standards higher, and really ask themselves and assess their own self and their own projects. Is it at the level to where I've dedicated enough time to where I can really decide, is this gonna work or is it not? And if the answer is no, then you got some more work to do. And if it's yeah, then you need to do something else, or you need to keep going depending on what the answer is.
That's a fact. That's a fact. I've seen some of the guests that you have on Sleepers for Billionaires, bro, and I see the work. Had some pretty big names on the show, bro, and that's very
Trying, man.
impressive. And
Thank
you
you.
gave us a little bit of the insight into how you land these guests. Law of averages. Make sure that you're putting the net out there and actually approaching the people that you would like on your show. My question for you is like, what are some of your favorite or who are some of your favorite guests that you've had on your show so far?
I'm gonna be honest with you, man. All the guests are my favorite guests. You know what I'm saying? Because they all, every guest has contributed to my dream. You know what I'm saying? And all those guests didn't know me from a hole in the wall. Out of the 100 guests I got, maybe like 5 people knew me personally before getting on the show. Everybody else was just an inquiry I put in. They saw the material. They said yes. You know what I'm saying? So all of them is my favorite because this is something I created from my head, bro. Like, I just woke up one day, I was like, fuck it, I'm starting a podcast. Podcast popping, I'm jumping in. Let's get it. And then I just, like you said, design my own destiny. You know what I'm saying? And then just made people a part of it, made people believe it. You know what I'm saying? And then they wanted to be a part of it. So, every guest was my favorite guest. But I do got a story about a guest. It was my first podcast, which was a gentleman named Dorian Wilson, who you might know him as Professor Ogilvy. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? He gave me my first episode, bro, and it was so dope. Like, I met him prior, because we did some acting together on this show called In the Cut. I did some background work for them or whatever. And then I reached out to him like, yo, I got this podcast come through. I want to interview. He drove 45 minutes to me to do the interview, right? Did the interview, it was clean. Again, it was my first podcast, first time owning a professional camera. So I did the podcast, everything was cool. He loved it. I went home, loaded that footage, and I had the slow motion functionality on, not the regular speed. So everybody
Yeah.
the whole time, and I literally wanted to cry, bro. I literally wanted to cry. So I called him immediately, and I'm like, "Yo, listen, man, you're gonna hate me, but I still love you. This is what happened." And he was just so cool about it. He was just like, "Oh man, it happens, man. I completely understand. I know you got to be kicking yourself in the ass because I'm sure he's been there. He's been where I'm at. He's a legend in the game. You know what I'm saying? Shout out Dorian Wilson. But yeah, so he ended up coming back like a week later, doing the show again, and he actually brought me like two jackets, like two like blazer jackets, super fly jackets, just for me to wear on my next episodes with other guests, so I could be fly in it. So, and I'm like, yo, like you ain't have to show me that type of love, like what I'm saying, especially if I'm making you come back. I offered to buy him lunch and all that. He was like, nah, son, you good, you good. So, what I'm saying, that's my most memorable moment of the podcast when it comes to the guests, because one, it was my first, and two, what I'm saying, I've been watching that dude act since I was like 10. You know what I'm saying? And for him, for him to be in my face and show me that kind of love, that was so genuine, dog. And it just gave me a lot of respect for him, and as well as other actors, and just people in general. You know what I'm saying? Because on the outside looking in, people have this stigma about actors and celebrities that they're assholes. You know what I'm saying? Not some of them are, you know what I mean, but not all of them. You know what I'm saying? You still got people who are grounded, and who are just genuine people that really can see the hunger and the grind in somebody else and be like, yo, I was him at one point and could show love like that. You know what I'm saying? And he did that for me.
That's dope. And that's a testament to what happens when you shoot your shot. And that's important in business, right? You think a lot of people get held back and they would have never even asked to invite him on to their podcast, especially for the first episode.
Right.
They wouldn't have even asked, right? So
Right.
my whole thing is have the guts to follow your gut. So I want to celebrate you. I want to acknowledge you for going ahead and doing that and creating that, and then bringing the value from that conversation to the people that needed it. How can we get tap into Sleepers for Billionaires?
Oh man, we everywhere. They never did, Daddy. You already know. Nah, but yeah, Sleep is for Billionaires. The video version is it lives on YouTube, as well as the website sleepersforbillionaires.co. The .com was taken. Somebody try to get one under me, but nah, I chose the .co. I'm about to get the .net as well. We got the Sleepers for Billionaires YouTube channel. The audio version lives on everywhere. It has Anchor, Apple Podcasts. So I distribute it through Anchor.com, and they distribute it everywhere else. I'm sure you do that as well. So that's available there. The album is on Spotify. um yeah, the merch is on the website. It's also going to be on the Amazon store. You can also get it from me directly. You know what I'm saying? So that's how you could tap in with Sleepers for Billionaires.
That's dope. That's dope, man. And as always, everybody that's listening, all the links will be found right in the bio or the caption, depending on where you're watching this. And before we tap out, Johnny, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I want to know, what is the number one thing anybody can do right now to start making a shift towards living out their dream instead of living what the default, what society says that they should be doing?
During these times, especially with the pandemic, man, you kind of just gotta adapt to the situation and really decide where, get in where you fit in. Like with me, you know what I'm saying? Since sales was the bread and butter, and the podcast, was more interview based, person to person, I had to make a pivot. So yeah, I started doing the virtual interviews with the podcast, but the sales, I aligned myself with some, since I knew the pandemic was coming and more people was going to be in need of personal protective equipment. I aligned myself with other medical companies that act as medical suppliers and supply this equipment, and became an independent contractor for them. And it basically did a sales agreement where, I sell some of your product, you give me commission off of it, and then I chose to kind of just sell to governments and hospitals, and broker deals with other brokers, and I've been doing pretty well since the pandemic, because now it's like I'm in a situation where the more the pandemic, the more opportunity I have to make money. You know what I'm saying? So I say just adapt to the situation, take the skills you already have, and then apply it the best way you can to the situation. And if you just want to stick to pushing your dream, really figure out how can you adapt to the situation and still make your dreams profitable for you. Because at the end of the day, you gotta make money, you gotta eat.
That's gold. That's gold. You got to be able to adapt. You got to be able to adapt. One thing that I remember is that if you're not flexible, you're gonna break, right? And don't nobody want to be broke. So you gotta adapt. I appreciate you.
Likewise, man. Shout out to my man Billionaire PA tapped in 4 times, you know what I
Yes,
mean?
indeed. 4 times for Billionaire, man. 4 more times for Johnny Vegas. Make sure y'all tap in to Johnny Vegas. Make sure y'all tap into Sleepers for Billionaires. You already see it. You already know what's going on. And
Big
as
facts.
always, to everybody listening, love, love. Be well. And don't forget to have the guts to follow your guts. Peace.
That's